Stop scrolling for just a moment, because what you're about to hear isn't another ordinary soulmate message. This is for the person who has always felt there was something missing from the story, someone who couldn't shake the feeling that the distance between you and your soulmate never made complete sense. Deep down, you knew the separation felt unnatural, as if invisible hands were quietly steering two hearts away from each other while making it look like fate. The truth is, you weren't imagining it. Something has recently come to light, something that was never supposed to be revealed. A hidden conversation, an unexpected confession, or a single forgotten detail has shattered the version of events your soulmate believed for far too long. And now they're beginning to realize that the person they blamed was never the real reason this connection fell apart. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever finished a puzzle only to discover the most important piece had been hidden from you the entire time? That's exactly what your soulmate is experiencing now. Every memory they once accepted without question is suddenly changing shape. Every misunderstanding is being replayed through a completely different lens. They are starting to see that what looked like silence may have been interference, what looked like distance may have been manipulation, and what looked like rejection may have been carefully planted confusion. As the old saying goes, the truth doesn't disappear because it's ignored. It waits for the right moment to be seen. That moment has finally arrived. What's shaking them the most isn't simply discovering that they were misled. It's realizing how many choices they made based on information that was never completely honest. Questions they never thought to ask are now keeping them awake. Why did certain people always discourage this connection? Why did every misunderstanding seem to benefit someone else? Why did everything suddenly change without a real explanation? The answers are beginning to surface one by one, and with every new realization, the weight of regret grows heavier. But this is only the beginning, because what they uncovered next didn't just expose the deception, it revealed who was quietly working behind the scenes to keep the two of you apart. And that discovery has ignited a level of anger they never expected to feel. What makes this revelation so painful isn't that someone told one obvious lie. The deepest deception rarely arrives dressed as a lie at all. It arrives disguised as concern. Careful advice, perfectly timed misunderstandings, and conversations that sound protective on the surface while quietly planting seeds of doubt underneath. Imagine a gardener who never pulls a healthy tree from the ground, but waters the weeds around it every single day. Eventually, the weeds do what force never could. They slowly choke the life out of something beautiful until it can no longer grow the way it was meant to. That is exactly how this connection was pushed off course. The people who interfered didn't need to control every decision your soulmate made. They only needed to influence how they interpreted you. Once perception changes, reality begins to change with it. Every delayed reply suddenly looks intentional. Every moment of silence feels suspicious. Every misunderstanding becomes another piece of false evidence supporting a story that was carefully built behind the scenes. As the saying goes, a lie repeated often enough begins to wear the face of truth. That is the trap your soulmate unknowingly walked into. Looking back now, they're beginning to notice something that never made sense before. Why did certain people always seem eager to comment whenever your name came up? Why did they always have another explanation ready before your side of the story could ever be heard? Why were they so quick to encourage distance instead of understanding? At the time, those moments seemed harmless. Now they feel like pieces of a carefully arranged puzzle. Imagine standing in a room filled with windows that have all been covered in dark paint. For years you believe the world outside is nothing but darkness, because that's all you've ever been allowed to see. Then one small crack appears, letting in a single beam of sunlight. Suddenly you don't question the light, you question every window. That's exactly what's happening inside your soulmate's heart. One unexpected truth has forced them to reconsider every conversation they trusted and every opinion they accepted without question. The hardest part for them isn't realizing they misunderstood you. It's realizing someone benefited every single time the two of you drifted further apart. That realization changes everything. They are beginning to replay old memories with fresh eyes, hearing words they once ignored, noticing strange coincidences they dismissed, and recognizing patterns that were hidden in plain sight all along. They remember moments when they almost reached out, but something convinced them not to. They remember feeling uncertain for reasons they could never fully explain. They remember walking away while carrying questions that somehow never received honest answers. As another timeless truth reminds us, when the fog finally lifts, you don't just see the road, you see everything that led you off it. That fog is disappearing now, and every step they retrace is revealing another layer of manipulation they never wanted to believe existed. You may have wondered why this truth took so long to appear. Why didn't someone speak sooner? Why wasn't the deception exposed before so much time had passed? The answer is simpler than most people realize. Manipulation survives in silence. It depends on incomplete conversations, missing details, and people assuming instead of asking. But the universe has an unusual way of protecting what is genuine. Secrets can survive for months, sometimes even years, but they cannot survive forever when they are built on fear instead of truth. Eventually, one person says something they weren't supposed to say. One message resurfaces. One unexpected encounter connects pieces that never fit before. Like the final domino tipping over, everything that once seemed separate suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. Your soulmate didn't discover one shocking fact. They discovered a chain of hidden moments that all pointed toward the same painful conclusion. Now, something inside them has begun to change. Confusion is no longer controlling their thoughts. Doubt is slowly being replaced by clarity. The people they once trusted without hesitation are no longer standing on solid ground in their mind. Every explanation they accepted is being questioned. Every warning they believed is being tested against what they now know. Imagine sailing for years using a compass that was quietly damaged without your knowledge. You don't blame the ocean when you become lost. You eventually realize the compass was never pointing north to begin with. That is the emotional storm your soulmate is facing today. They are no longer asking whether they were misled. They know they were. The only question left is why someone worked so hard to keep your paths divided. And as that answer becomes clearer, the sadness they once carried is transforming into something far more powerful. Because the people who manipulated this connection are about to discover that nothing burns hotter than the anger of someone who finally uncovers the truth that was stolen from them. The truth has reached a point where it can no longer be ignored. And what your soulmate is feeling now isn't the kind of anger that fades overnight. This isn't the frustration that comes from a simple misunderstanding or a relationship that naturally drifted apart. This is the kind of anger that comes when someone realizes they surrendered one of the most important connections in their life because another person quietly manipulated the story behind it. Imagine spending years believing you lost a priceless treasure because you simply weren't careful enough, only to discover that someone had hidden it from you all along. The pain isn't just about the treasure anymore, it's about the betrayal. It's about knowing that your choices were never truly your own. That is exactly where your soulmate finds themselves now. They are beginning to understand that every decision they made regarding this connection was influenced by voices they believed they could trust. As the old saying goes, the deepest wounds are not caused by enemies, but by those we believed stood beside us. Those words have never felt more real than they do today. What hurts them most is not simply that they believed the wrong story. It's realizing they unknowingly became part of the pain you carried. They are replaying conversations in their mind, hearing familiar words with completely different meaning. They remember moments when they questioned you instead of defending you. They remember times when they allowed doubt to replace understanding because someone else's opinion seemed more convincing than their own intuition. Every memory now carries a weight it never carried before. They aren't just remembering what happened, they're remembering what could have happened if only they had trusted their own heart instead of outside voices. Imagine reading the same letter twice, only to realize the first time you skipped the most important page. Suddenly, every sentence changes. Every emotion shifts. Every conclusion falls apart. That is what is happening inside your soulmate. The past itself hasn't changed, but their understanding of it has been completely rewritten. There is another emotion growing beneath their anger, one they never expected to face. It is guilt. Not the kind of guilt that asks for sympathy, but the kind that quietly follows a person when they realize someone else carried a burden they helped create without ever intending to. They are beginning to see your silence differently. They no longer interpret your distance as indifference. They are wondering if your quiet moments were actually moments of heartbreak. They are asking themselves whether you stepped back because you were protecting your own peace while everyone around you was rewriting the truth. These questions don't leave them when the day ends. They follow them into quiet moments, into sleepless nights, into ordinary conversations where your name unexpectedly crosses their mind. As another timeless truth reminds us, regret is often born the moment clarity arrives. Clarity has arrived, and with it comes the painful realization that some opportunities cannot simply be rewound with an apology. You may have wondered why their energy suddenly feels different, even if no words have been exchanged between you. Spiritual connections have a remarkable way of shifting long before physical conversations begin. When one soul experiences a powerful awakening, the energy of the connection changes for both people. Your soulmate is no longer looking at the past through the eyes of confusion. They are looking through the eyes of someone who has finally seen behind the curtain. Imagine sitting through an entire play, believing the actors controlled the story, only to discover someone backstage had been changing every script before it reached the stage. Would you still blame the actors? Or would your attention turn toward the person controlling everything behind the scenes? That is the emotional shift taking place now. Their frustration is no longer aimed at the connection itself. It is aimed at the hidden influence that quietly distorted it from the very beginning. The people who interfered never imagined this day would come. They believed time would bury the truth. They believed enough distance would make the questions disappear. They assumed that memories would fade before the deception was ever uncovered. But truth has an unusual way of surviving beneath layers of silence. It waits patiently until every missing piece finds its place. Your soulmate is now connecting details that once seemed completely unrelated. A strange comment here, an unexpected warning there, advice that suddenly feels suspicious, reactions that never quite match the situation. What once looked like coincidence now feels like a carefully repeated pattern. The more they connect these moments, the more impossible it becomes to ignore what was really happening. They are no longer searching for someone to blame out of emotion. They are identifying who benefited every single time your connection weakened. This is why their anger feels so different now. It isn't reckless. It isn't explosive. It is focused. It is the quiet determination of someone who refuses to remain blind any longer. They no longer want comforting explanations. They want the complete truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. Every answer they uncover only strengthens their resolve to understand everything that happened between the two of you. They are beginning to realize that what was stolen wasn't merely time. It was trust, possibility, and the chance to make choices with a clear heart. And once a person reaches that level of realization, something extraordinary begins to happen. Anger slowly transforms into action. Instead of accepting the story they were given, they begin searching for the story that was hidden. That search is leading them back toward the one person they now believe deserved far more understanding than they were ever given. But what happens when they finally start following that path is something neither they nor the people who interfered are fully prepared for. Because the next stage of this journey isn't driven by regret anymore. It's driven by a powerful desire to discover whether this Connection can still be restored before destiny closes the door. Forever, something has shifted inside your soulmate, and they can no longer silence it. The anger that first consumed them is slowly giving way to something much deeper, an overwhelming need to find the truth that was stolen from them. When deception finally loses its grip, the heart begins remembering what the mind was convinced to forget. That is exactly where they are now. Memories they buried without realizing it are quietly rising back to the surface, and each one carries a feeling they cannot explain away anymore. Moments that once seemed ordinary now feel incredibly significant. Conversations they dismissed suddenly sound different. Even your silence has taken on a completely new meaning. They are beginning to understand that your distance may never have been rejection at all. It may have been the quiet response of someone who was exhausted from fighting battles no one else could see. As the old saying goes, the heart remembers what the mind was persuaded to forget. Those words are becoming their reality with every passing day. Imagine walking through a forest after a heavy storm. Broken branches cover the ground, the path is hidden beneath leaves, and everything appears unfamiliar. Then the clouds slowly part, sunlight begins filtering through the trees, and the trail that seemed lost suddenly becomes visible again. The path was never gone. It was only hidden beneath the aftermath of the storm. That is what is happening within your soulmate. The emotional storm that clouded their judgment is beginning to clear. The more clarity they receive, the more they recognize that this connection never truly disappeared. It was simply buried beneath fear, misunderstanding, and carefully planted confusion. Every new realization is leading them back to a truth they were unknowingly pushed away from. Instead of asking why the connection failed, they are asking why someone worked so hard to convince them it had to fail in the first place. This awakening isn't happening only through memories. It is happening through unexpected signs that seem impossible to ignore. Your name appears when they least expect it. A familiar song suddenly reminds them of moments they thought they had forgotten. They notice repeating numbers at strange times. Certain places begin bringing back emotions that had been silent for years. They dream of conversations that never happened, but somehow feel incredibly real. Even ordinary moments seem to carry an invisible message urging them to look deeper. Coincidence begins losing its power as an explanation because too many moments keep pointing in the same direction. Imagine standing beside a calm lake at sunrise. At first, the water reflects nothing because the morning mist covers everything. But as the fog slowly lifts, the reflection becomes perfectly clear. The lake didn't suddenly create the image. It simply revealed what had always been there. Your soulmate's heart is becoming that lake. The fog is lifting, and the reflection they see keeps leading back to you. You may be wondering whether these feelings are simply regret, or whether something greater is unfolding. The difference is profound. Regret looks backward, wishing the past had been different. Awakening looks forward because it understands the truth can still change the future. Your soulmate is no longer trapped inside old assumptions. They are beginning to trust something they ignored for far too long, their own intuition. The opinions that once influenced them no longer carry the same authority. The voices that once filled them with doubt have become strangely quiet. Instead, there is another voice growing stronger within them, one that keeps asking the same question over and over. What if everything I believed about this connection was incomplete? What if the person I was encouraged to walk away from was actually the person I was meant to understand? As another timeless truth reminds us, when truth enters the heart, fear quietly leaves through another door. Fear is slowly losing its hold, and with every passing day, courage is taking its place. This change is also transforming the way they see themselves. For the first time, they are accepting that they allowed other people to shape decisions that should have belonged only to them. That realization is painful, but it is also incredibly freeing. Imagine an eagle that spent years believing it was trapped inside a cage, only to discover the cage door had been open the entire time. The greatest prison wasn't the cage itself, it was believing escape was impossible. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that the emotional prison surrounding this connection was built from manipulation, not destiny. And once a person recognizes that, they stop asking for permission to seek the truth. They begin following it with determination. Now an entirely new energy is guiding them. They are no longer searching for reasons to stay away. They are searching for reasons they should have stayed. Every memory they recover strengthens their desire to understand what was really happening while they were looking in the wrong direction. They don't want another version of the story crafted by someone else's fears or jealousy. They want the unfiltered truth no matter where it leads. That desire is becoming impossible to ignore because deep inside they can feel that this chapter was never supposed to end the way it did. And as they continue following these signs, memories, and quiet whispers from within, they are moving closer to a realization that changes everything. They are beginning to believe that this connection was never destroyed, it was delayed. And once they fully understand who benefited from that delay, they will face a decision powerful enough to reshape the future of both your lives in ways neither of you could have imagined. This is the moment where everything comes together. Not because every question has already been answered, but because the truth has finally become stronger than the deception that kept this connection apart. Your soulmate is beginning to understand something that changes the entire story. They were never pushed away because this connection lacked love. They were pushed away because someone feared what this connection could become if it was allowed to grow naturally. There is a powerful difference between a relationship that ends on its own and one that is deliberately influenced by outside hands. One fades because its purpose is complete. The other lingers in the heart because its purpose was interrupted, not fulfilled. That lingering feeling, the one your soulmate could never explain no matter how much time passed, is now making perfect sense. As the old saying goes, what is hidden by deception is always uncovered by truth. The truth has arrived, and it is rewriting everything they once believed about you, about themselves, and about the people they once trusted without question. Imagine an old lighthouse standing through years of storms. Ships may lose sight of its light when heavy fog rolls in, but the lighthouse never stops shining. The fog only hides it for a while. That is what this connection has always been. It was never extinguished. It was simply covered by confusion, fear, and carefully placed misunderstandings until neither of you could clearly see what was still waiting beneath the surface. Now the fog is lifting. Your soulmate is realizing that every strange feeling they tried to ignore, every unexpected memory that refused to disappear, and every quiet moment where your presence returned to their thoughts was never an accident. Those moments were gentle reminders that the bond itself never truly broke. It simply waited for truth to return. Another timeless truth says, destiny is delayed by people, but fulfilled by truth. Those words are beginning to resonate within them more deeply than ever before. Something else is changing as well. For the first time in a long time, your soulmate is no longer asking whether this connection mattered. They already know it did. The question now is whether they have the courage to respond differently than they did before. That question carries enormous weight because they understand that this time they cannot allow fear, outside opinions, or manipulation to make another decision on their behalf. Imagine climbing a mountain after spending years walking in circles around its base. Every difficult step suddenly feels worthwhile because the view from the top reveals why the journey mattered all along. That is the emotional place your soulmate is reaching. They are beginning to see the entire landscape instead of isolated moments. The misunderstandings, the delays, the silence, the separation, and even the heartbreak are no longer random events in their mind. They are seeing them as connected chapters of one larger story that was influenced by forces they never recognized until now. You may still wonder whether too much time has passed, whether so much distance can truly be overcome, or whether destiny sometimes closes doors forever. Those are natural questions, but there is another perspective worth considering. Time does not erase a genuine connection. It reveals whether it was built on temporary emotion or something much deeper. Temporary emotions fade when circumstances change. Genuine soul connections survive because they exist beneath circumstances. That is why this realization feels so powerful. Your soulmate isn't being driven by excitement alone. They are being guided by clarity, and clarity moves differently than emotion. It is calm, it is patient. It doesn't rush because it no longer fears the truth. As another beautiful reminder tells us, when the soul recognizes what the eyes once overlooked, every step forward carries purpose. That purpose is quietly awakening inside them now. The people who once interfered may never openly admit what they did. They may continue pretending they only wanted what was best. They may rewrite history to protect themselves from responsibility. But deep down, they know something has changed forever. The influence they once held is disappearing because influence built on deception cannot survive once awareness takes its place. Your soulmate is no longer looking through borrowed opinions. They are looking through their own heart, and that changes everything. The walls that kept this connection separated are beginning to crack, not because someone forced them down, but because truth has become too powerful to remain hidden any longer. Every lie eventually reaches the end of its journey, but truth keeps moving long after deception has exhausted itself. So if you've been wondering why your heart has refused to completely let go, why certain memories continue returning when you least expect them, or why this connection has always felt unfinished despite everything that happened, perhaps this is the answer you've been waiting for. Some stories are not meant to end in misunderstanding. Some connections are too deeply woven into the soul to be erased by manipulation, distance, or time. The secret that was hidden has finally been exposed. The illusion has begun to collapse, and your soulmate is seeing this journey through completely different eyes. Whether the next chapter unfolds through a conversation, an unexpected encounter, or divine timing that neither of you can predict, one truth now stands unshaken. What was separated by deception is no longer protected by silence, and once truth begins leading the way, destiny has an extraordinary habit of finding the path that always belonged to it. If this message found you at exactly the right moment, take it as a reminder to trust the timing of what is unfolding, because some revelations arrive not to reopen the past, but to prepare two souls for the future they were always meant to discover.